So the meditation that I wanted to share today is one that I'd practiced, but not in the past, but not nearly well enough. I sort of got a nice fresh take on this while I was at this retreat recently, um, and it's a meditation using our imagination, just making good use of our imagination as a way to get started in any other meditation, as a way to sort of get a nice fresh. Well, I'll teach two versions of it. One, just as a nice way to get a fresh start in our minds as we're sitting down to meditate, and as something we can do as a preliminary for any other meditation practice. And then I'll teach a second version just about using our imagination to develop a different view of the people that we interact with on a regular basis, helping us to sort of change our minds. So just, I guess, as a preliminary few words, there's a common perception about meditation. Well, there's a lot of common ideas about meditation. One common idea that I've probably contributed to reinforcing here in these classes is that meditation is just about becoming aware of your breath and your body and concrete things around you, and as opposed to getting caught up in imagination, for example, or distraction. So it's one very common way of meditating is, instead of having distractions and fantasies and memories and so forth arising, we just ground ourselves in our body and the place we're at right now, and our breathing and so forth. And we use that to still and to reset our mind. Equally powerful kind of meditation, however, is meditation actually using our imagination. But how could it be that some meditations are trying to stop us from imagining, and other meditations are trying to get us to imagine? What's going on? Make up your mind. The point is that the definition of meditation is any mental activity that focuses on an object that makes our mind more peaceful. And that meditation sows the seeds and reinforces these pathways in the mind for deeper inner peace. So sometimes just being very grounded, focusing on our breath, body, so forth, goes a long way towards making our mind more peaceful, because it helps to interrupt this sort of unpeaceful trains of thought that we easily develop. But sometimes we can imagine things that actually make our mind far more peaceful. So that's the way that we can reconcile the seeming contradiction. And in fact, there's an enormous amount we can do with our imagination that is oriented towards making our mind more peaceful. So the practice that we can do as a preliminary for any meditation, and I'll try to remember to do this in future meditations, and we can spend a longer time here, is about, I'll talk through it and then I'll guide us through it. But imagining, first of all, that we're sitting as comfortably as possible. Now, some of that means actually sitting as comfortably as possible. And some of it is partly just our imagination, just imagining that our body is relaxed and comfortable and peaceful. Second, imagining that our environment around us is inspiring and uplifting and beautiful. And if you're sometimes having your eyes open, if you're in an environment that you find beautiful and inspiring and uplifting, having your eyes open is great then. If your environment is not, like you're sitting in an airport and trying to meditate and so forth, then maybe closing your eyes, but imagining you're in a beautiful, inspiring, uplifting environment. And then imagining that around you are the people closest to you. And traditionally, we start with our parents on the basis that we have our life because of them, and in hopes that we have a reasonably good relationship with them, even if it needs a little improvement, we've got a reasonably good relationship with them. It often comes up, this question, what if you don't have a good relationship with your parents and they're the last people you'd want to sit next to if you're meditating? Well, okay, start slow, do what works for you. But imagining the people that we spend time with around us, our family, friends, coworkers. But here's where the imagination part kicks in. We just think of them in a generic sense, but imagine that they're happy. Imagine that they are also meditating with a totally open mind, a totally inspired and open mind. We don't need to get into details of exactly how they normally think, how they normally act, their personality, and so forth. The point is to get beyond what we think that they normally are like. And to instead engage with a version of them that is happy, peaceful, uplifted, inspired, and meditating right alongside us. Now, I had done this meditation in the past, but it always kind of felt like in the back of my mind, there's this part thinking, well, I don't think my parents really would want to do meditation alongside me, or my friends, or whatever, or they wouldn't like it, and I don't want to force them, so I'm not gonna even imagine them. But the point really is about imagining that they are with us and that they're happy, right, and that they're peaceful and inspired. And I always think back to this. These research studies they've done where they tell the teacher on the first before the first day of school that they're coming into the top performing class in the school, and I'm sure perhaps it doesn't always work, but at least the way I was told, this psychology experiment. And the teacher just engages with the kids as if they were the top performing group in the school, and it draws out these characteristics from the kids. So we think about changing our view of the people around us from like, oh, they're like this and they're like that, to which in reality is just freezing, like taking our particular very, very biased snapshot of that person and kind of freezing them in that mode. And then we act towards other people as if that's the reality, the only version of them that's possible, as opposed to imagining a version of them that is utterly peaceful, kind, good-hearted, inspired, wanting to meditate along with us, wanting to change their own mind and help the world and so forth. And then dealing with that version of the person. If we become strong and good at this meditation, then even when we're out of meditation and we're meeting these people in real life, that's the way we'll see them. And that's the second part of the meditation that I'll sort of come to afterwards. Just seeing that other people have this, relating to other people as having this potential. So hopefully that makes sense. So what we can do now is just to settle into our own meditation, get a little bit of practice of this. So, okay, so as explained, we first of all sit comfortably, and we sit as comfortably as we can. But we also imagine that our body is comfortable and relaxed and at peace. And we imagine that we are in a beautiful, inspiring environment. And holding this imagination is the meditation itself, or is part of the meditation itself. If we become distracted, we just return to feeling like we're in a beautiful, inspiring environment. We can take a few breaths, just consciously settling our mind. And we can imagine around us our parents. We just think it is because of these people that we have life. Our entire life has come from them. And we let go of our normal perceptions of them and just feel that they're with us and that they're happy, peaceful, inspired, and that they're meditating alongside us. We don't really know anyone, even ourselves. We don't really know what we're capable of, how much peace, freedom, joy. Similarly, with others, we don't allow our own preconceptions about people to lock us in. We focus on a version of our parents that is happy, peaceful, inspired, and meditating alongside us. And around them, we imagine our other close family, friends, people we spend time with. Imagining them also in this beautiful environment, and imagining that they too are totally peaceful, happy, inspired, and meditating alongside us. So it is extraordinarily powerful for us to let go of our preconceptions of others and to see them at their most pure. We are retraining our mind to see through all of the clouds of others' moods, views, and so forth. Like cloud penetrating radar that can see through to the naturally peaceful state that everyone's mind can attain. And we extend our imagination as much as we can, incorporating other people who we encounter, friends, enemies, strangers, trying to imagine everyone, even non-human beings, but just imagining them all at their most peaceful. And imagine we're meditating all with a single unified purpose, and that purpose is, in fact, all of our deepest purposes. It is the wish to be happy, the wish to be free from suffering. And this, in fact, unites everyone, regardless of the methods they take to try to achieve this. We just imagine ourselves and all beings just united by this profound common wish to be free from suffering, but we actually imagine that for this time we are experiencing that reality. We are all happy, peaceful, inspired, free from suffering through the force of our meditation. If our mind wanders, we recall that we are in a beautiful, inspiring environment surrounded by our parents, friends, family, colleagues, and all living beings, all with happy, peaceful, inspired minds, all meditating together with this common wish, common view, united by a common wish to be free from suffering and to find happiness. If we like, we can even imagine that we are all united as a common body, like the body of all living beings, just as a way to bring a sense of simplicity and coherence to the presence of all of these beings around us. We just imagine they're like cells in the body of all living beings. Our body naturally organizes for a common purpose, so the body of all living beings is organized for a common purpose, to be free from suffering, find happiness. And then as we begin to emerge from our meditation, we make a decision to hold this feeling and to return to it as often as we can throughout our day, holding this pure view of others. From our meditation. So we can use a practice like this as a preliminary to enter into any meditation to increase the power of that meditation. There are two effects that a meditation like that has on our minds. Well, there's a lot of effects, but two principal influences. One, as we hold a different view of other people, we allow them to sort of, in our imagination initially, but also eventually as we're interacting with them, as we hold a view of another person, we allow them to respond to that new view of them. We kind of open up space to allow them to respond as that person. And we sort of allow, I guess, a little abstract terminology, but we allow space for that person to change and to be a different person. That's how this view can begin to influence the others around us, sort of opening up to the possibility that others have this enormous capacity for peace and happiness and freedom and good intention and fulfilling their intention for happiness. So that's one influence. The other influence is that we tend to follow the crowd. Like it's just a sort of default. Not saying we do this in every part of our life all the time, but in general, we tend to follow the crowd. So when you come to this meditation class, you close your eyes and sit very still. And like we follow this small crowd. If we're in a cafe, we go up to the cafe and we order a drink just because that's what you're supposed to do in a cafe. You sit down, the other person wants to chat, so you chat. We always tend to follow those around us. Now, if you imagine that around you are your parents, but they're actually peaceful, happy, virtuous, inspired, meditating, and that around them are your colleagues, friends, and so forth. You actually, in your imagination, you create a little bit of social pressure for yourself to be happy, peaceful, inspired, and so forth. So if you can get some feeling for this, it can really move our minds because, at least for me, I'd always been kind of troubled by this feeling, that I couldn't quite convince my parents that, meditate or the rest, let alone the rest of society, right? And if I can't convince my parents, how on earth would I convince the rest of society that it's very important to just be peaceful and meditate and so forth? I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that I'm not alone in that experience. That you kind of always want to convince, if we want to convince society of something, well, our parents are a very early benchmark of whether that's possible or not. And if our parents don't agree with our ideas for whatever reason, then we end up just kind of feeling a bit frustrated, like, oh, nobody would understand. But sometimes those constraints are self-imposed. Really, it's in fact, it's our view of our parents, our view of our society, that really at their heart, no matter how somebody acts externally, even if it seems to be the exact opposite of peace and happiness and kindness and so forth, in their hearts, we all want to be happy, right? We all want to be free from suffering. So we create that. We hold that version of the people around us, and really it gives freedom, gives us more space to expand socially, psychologically. And so that's all sort of in the context of this first meditation. It's a powerful way to start any meditation. Now, the second aspect of this I mentioned is just holding holding this pure view of others. We all have countless aspects, right? And think about our parents' view of us, seeing us growing up. They know that we have a crazy version of ourselves and an angry version of ourselves and a uncontrolled version of ourselves. But they, you get to see a lot of aspects of anybody over time. And so every person that we encounter, even if part of our mind thinks that they're evil or part of our mind thinks that they're responsible, they speak in hurtful ways or whatever. Everybody has, this sort of pure aspect. Thinking of the person as like a container, basically. The container of our personhood or personality is filled with a variety of ideas that are always changing, continuously changing. Some of them driven by our instincts and emotions, some of them influenced by others around us, stress and pressures that we're feeling or imagining. But our mind itself is like a container. So too is the mind of others. And like any container, if you empty it out, clean it out, freshen it up, it can become a pure container if you want. It can become a container that is unstained by anger, greed, self-centeredness, etc., etc. So holding this view of others is a powerful practice of our imagination that we can take with us in our daily life, in all of our interactions with other people. And again, like the story of a school teacher coming in on their first day of class, having been told in advance that this was the highest performing class, even if it was the lowest performing class in the school, being told in advance that this was the highest performing class in the school, beginning to, and if obviously I'll try to find reference to that study because it's been many years since I'd heard it, but or you can and share with me, but actually seeing the students just perform, just sort of blossom in that environment because of the expectations that they're operating within. So I've often observed that nothing makes me angrier than when someone is angry at me and I feel like I'm being unfairly blamed. So someone gets angry at me and then I'm like, oh, that's not fair, and then I think about all the ways in which they, in fact, were guilty, and I ruminate on that. And so clearly the view that they have of me is influencing my own reaction to them. Similarly, we get angry at someone else. What are we going to draw out? Either an angry version of them or a defensive version of them or a scared version of them or something, but a lot of versions that are not them at their best. Probably the angry version, the defensive version, the scared version, none of those are going to be the best version of them. So people act in great part based on how we see them. Seeing other people as having some kind of genius, for example. It may not be a scholastic genius, but they've got some kind of a genius in them. Just predisposes our mind towards respect for them. One view we can have of others, as there's many views that we can. There's many ways of playing off of this meditation, but the essential part is seeing others with a mind of respect and admiration, using our imagination. And one way we can do that is seeing them as kind. And this itself is a whole huge topic, but seeing the kindness of others in one way or another, including if they're kind by challenging us. And I've talked about this meditation in the past, but the people who are challenging us, they show us the real nature of our mind. They show us, for example, how peaceful or unpeaceful we are. Um, but directly or indirectly, everyone that we encounter has been kind to us in many, many ways. Starting with our parents, just through whom we have this life, but then extending to the people that we spend time with, friends, family. Um, Now, seeing the kindness of others doesn't includes the ways in which we receive benefit, even when others are not doing it for charitable purposes, right? The kindness of someone in a restaurant who serves us, of course, they're being paid to make the food or bring the food or whatever. But of course, it is an enormous kindness that they're performing. And so I think in general, most people try to show up, you know, to some degree at their jobs, wishing to help. Like, not always the case all the time, 100% of the time, but this natural wish to help and to be kind to others comes out of us when we feel that we are respected, especially. And so by seeing others as kind, it helps to draw out that kind tendency in them, recognizing that we all fundamentally are wishing to be happy and free from suffering. Ideally, we have that wish extending to others as a mind of love and compassion. Um, but at the very least, for ourselves, some mind wishing for ourselves, our family. But that is the underlying root. And that is the root of kindness, at least trying to help ourselves. Um, but ideally, as our sense of self gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then recognizing that helping the people around us, serving others, looking after our family, helping society, all of these ways of helping others are in fact ways of just helping bigger and bigger selves. So anyway, all of this just by way of the essential instruction to use our imagination to change our view of others, and to not just grasp on to the version that we think exists, both of our environment around us, ourselves, the others around us. So in these ways, imagination can sort of open us up and free ourselves to um, have more peaceful interactions. Okay, so we can take just a minute to one final contemplation, just imagining the power of deepening. What will happen if we deepen this tendency in our own mind? If others deepen this tendency, this pure view in their minds, just briefly imagining the power to change ourself, our view of the world, our society. Okay, so open our eyes, rise from our meditation.